lot of people are going to watch the replay. So I'm just going to go through basic canyon equipment from the perspective of people who are attending canyon trips. Obviously, if you're like leading canyon trips, you need a lot more equipment. If we have time at the end of the call, I'll try to go through that stuff as well. I've got it all here on my desk. And then there's like another level of canyon equipment if you're going to be involved in like, if you want to be prepared for rescues and you want to be prepared for emergency situations, there's like a whole other set of gear as well, which I have some of it here. I doubt we'll have time to go through it all, but just a bit of context. I split it up into like level 1, which is basically you're someone who wants to go to a canyon trip and be safe and be comfortable and to know what you're getting yourself into. I'll focus on that today. Level 2 is like basic leading, and then level 3 is more advanced stuff. And feel free to ask questions. Everyone on the recording will really enjoy hearing your questions. And because we've got a lot of gear to cover, just try to keep the questions as brief and as to the point as you can, and I'll ask follow-up questions. Anything before we begin?
No.
Oh. So wetsuits are really important in canyoning, obviously. In most canyons, at least wet canyons, having a wetsuit, at least a wetsuit top. And if it's a canyon where you're going to be fully immersed, you probably want to have a full body wetsuit. This is a wetsuit that's inside out. This is like thermal titanium stuff. This is a 4 mil on the body, 3 mil on the arms. Depending on your climate, you'll have different kind of wetsuit thicknesses and everything. And it's super handy if you also have knee pads on canyoning wetsuits, because you're often like climbing over rocks and everything, and otherwise they'll rip sooner and wear through. But hypothermia is one of the biggest challenges in canyons, especially if you've got a big group and it takes a while to get people down, and you're in a canyon where you can't really get out of the water as much, or you're in the shade, like if it's early morning or late afternoon. Hypothermia is probably one of the biggest risks. So definitely having like a good wetsuit. You want to be too warm rather than too cool. On a typical day, you'll be going through a canyon, it'll be fine if you don't have a wetsuit, or in summer, or if you just have like a wetsuit top. But in that situation where someone breaks a leg and you're stuck in the canyon, or you get trapped for any reason, you really don't want to have like hypothermia, because then it can get into a bit of a crisis situation. So recommend a good wetsuit, maybe even a thermal top. That's important.
Adele, are there any specific brands or anything that we should look out for?
I like O'Neill wetsuits, but there are canyoning specific ones. I don't have them top of my head right now. They're hard to get in Australia.
Yeah, okay.
I really like the high quality like O'Neill wetsuits, because they seem to be quite robust. They have the much thicker like thermal, that's the red coating. It's like a titanium underlay. So they just keep you so much warmer. And with wetsuits, you also want to have like your arms being able to move. So sometimes surfing wetsuits can be really handy, because they allow your arms to move. So just look for that. Does that answer your question?
Yep, that's great, thanks.
Cool.
There is a wetsuit warehouse in Aspley as well. I got my wetsuit from there. It's a big range from budget to expensive.
What do you have, Danielle?
I ended up just buying like a cheaper one. It's 2.5 mil, but it's been really good on the couple of trips that I did wear it.
Awesome. Yeah.
Did you get full length sleeves and legs?
I did, yeah.
Having a full-length wetsuit is also really important for another reason as well, and that's just to protect yourself from abrasion.
Yeah.
Especially with like the kinds of debris we have in our canyons here in Australia. The abrasion is like pretty hectic. I trained in Switzerland, and we were like in glacial water, and I worked in Switzerland as well as a canyoning guide, and I had a 5 mil wetsuit with a thermal top underneath, like a full body 5 mil wetsuit, and I was still cold.
Oh gosh.
Another piece of wetsuit material that you can use if you get really cold is wetsuit socks for inside your shoes, and also a wetsuit cap. I mean, in Australia, we wouldn't often need that unless you're going canyoning down south, but I just thought I'd mention it in case you want that. One of the most important pieces of canyoning equipment is actually your shoes. Having slippery shoes in a high flow canyon, like say it starts raining while you're in there, or there's quite a lot of water pushing you around, it can be like the difference between life and death, having good quality shoes and climbing out of things. Like, I've been in high flow canyoning situations where I didn't have good quality shoes because I came back to Switzerland to do a course and someone had been using my shoes and they got worn through. And so I rocked up ready to do this like pretty advanced stuff, and my shoes had been worn and I didn't have the grip. And I was in this high flow situation and I was literally relying on the only other person in the canyon with me to haul me out of pools because I couldn't get up on my own. So don't do what I do. Make sure you protect yourself. Much more important in high flow situations, and I wouldn't be going into high flow situations unless you have a little bit of extra knowledge around hydrology, what can happen in like canyon pools when there's a decent amount of flow in there, which I'll go through if we have time on the day. And definitely like it's more level 2 information because we don't have heaps of high flow stuff now, but I know people are currently doing a lot of canyoning in high flow situations, but there's quite a lot to go through there. But I mean, you can run through a high flow canyon and you can have no risk, like you can have no situation, but there could be that you're kind of eating from a jar of luck. Like if you don't know what you're looking at, if you don't know that there's like not debris that could get you like a strainer or something like that in the water, like you're just eating from a jar of luck. So I'd probably, definitely avoid it. And I also just want to say that I'm approaching this from my training in Switzerland, which is probably like very safety conscious. And so just take that with a grain of salt. I probably will come across like a little bit over the top with my safety. But it's just from, like when you have that responsibility as a guide, you really need to mitigate everything. So hopefully it's useful for you guys and not too much. But I have Adidas, Hydrolace, or Terex, Adidas Terex. There's canyoning specific shoe, and you can get them online. I haven't really seen them in physical stores around like Brisbane, Gold Coast area. Even better if you can get them like from Europe, much cheaper. What were you going to say?
Would that be the same sole as like the Terex Ascent shoes and that?
Do they use stealth rubber?
Yeah.
Yeah, stealth rubber. Yeah.
Because I've got Terex Ascent shoes and that, and I've used them inside the waterways and whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, grip wise, they're not too. I mean, you're not Superman. You can't stick to anything, but yeah. But yeah, as long as you've got stealth, then you're pretty right.
Yeah, stealth rubber is the best rubber. Like if you're looking at a different brand, try to get stealth rubber. All of those Vibram rubbers, even the really technical Vibram rubbers, I don't think they're as good as stealth rubber. It really does stick, like you say. So it's the rubber, and it's also the amount of tread you have left as well. But yeah, it sounds like your Ascent shoes are great. They might just be a little bit different, Jason, than like the specific water shoe that this is.
They're not the high tops. They're just your normal standard kind of like trainer looking shoe, but with stealth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, your 510s as well. They have stealth rubber on them, and they go pretty well too. But once again, they're only a shoe. They're not a high top. Right?
I loved my 510 Canyoneers. I used to have I don't think they make them anymore. They had a high top 510 with stealth called Canyoneers. But I haven't been able to find them. Like they did Rev 3, and then it was almost like they sold the stealth to Adidas. I don't know. Do you reckon?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Pretty sad day when we stopped being able to get 510 canyoning shoes, but Anything on shoes before we go on?
Nope.
shoes are like, I would say one of the most important things to make me feel safe in like any situation. Other than the harness, of course. I've got a guide harness and a specific canyoning harness. A lot of people use climbing harnesses here in Australia. I'm a pretty big advocate for canyoning harnesses, especially here in Australia, because we have very abrasive rock, and we're often sliding over rocks and stuff like that when we're canyoning. And so the canyoning harness has like this thick plastic thing which protects the leg straps from being worn through as you slide, so it lasts a lot longer. You also don't damage your wetsuit if you need to have a slide. Sometimes you want to have a slide, really fun. This particular harness, which probably isn't necessary for everyone, has a lot of gear straps, so I can like put all of my stuff for basically anything that I need on the side. I don't need to keep getting into my bag. A lot of this stuff I'd go through more for like level 2 relevant stuff when you're setting up systems for others and things like that. But while we're on the harness talking about descending, the descender is really important. Descenders in canyoning, I know a lot of people use like climbing descenders and stuff like that. Definitely wouldn't recommend it. Like the climbing belay point thing, like I see people going down canyons with that, and it'll get you down, but there's a lot of shit that can go wrong with it in a water and aquatic environment when you're often going over ledges, and sometimes there's rocks like knocking the rope and things like that. So having like a figure 8, which is good. This was like the old school traditional. I'm coming from like a European perspective, obviously, because I've trained over there, but this is the old school traditional descender. This is an 8, figure 8. This works. You can put extra friction on this as well if you rig it up properly. So Jason, I want to go through how to add extra friction on. But
it's actually quite. I've used the figure 8 a few times.
Yeah.
And they are quite fast.
Yeah.
And when you're actually hanging, to actually add more friction,
no,
it's not easy. It's not that easy when you've got to try and lift your weight to pull the rope over. It's not an easy thing. People go, oh, use this, use that. And this is what people have told me, and I've gone, yeah, it's okay in theory, but when you're hanging and you're slipping or whatever else, or you're going down at a speed that you're not comfortable with, to try and stop and then add more friction to a figure 8, isn't that easy?
It's actually quite risky with figure 8s in a non-controlled environment, like for several reasons. It's the friction, but what causes it to be more slippery? It's the kind of rope. It's the diameter of rope. And when you're doing recreational canyoning, which we're all doing, you've got different diameters of rope. Thinner ropes go way faster. People are often trying to get thinner ropes now because we've got such, tall canyons, and we have to hike such large distances in. And so if you've got a figure 8, which is great for when you've got your standard professional canyoning rope, and someone's got a thinner rope, like I've not used gloves, and I've literally my hands have been bleeding. It's been bad. So using just an 8 is not great. Like having this, something like this, a piranha.
I've got a Hannibal, which is very similar.
Yep, that'll work.
Yeah.
Can you hold it up, Jason? I just want to see the bottom parts. Okay, so it doesn't have these extra loops, so it's going to be harder for you to put on extra friction mid-flight. It does have a bit of that at the top, but not as much.
I wrap around that way.
Yep.
And it's easier to actually add friction to this than the figure 8.
100%. Yeah.
And like I say, I use all my ropes are 9.8 mainly, around about 9.8. And single strand, even with that, I fly down there. Sometimes I can't.
With the extra friction.
Yeah, because I've actually got I've got a Hydrobot too.
Yeah.
Really smooth, like really smooth on that, and I've actually gone down on speed mode and then basically had to stop and basically add more friction, and then at one stage stop again, then actually go around the top. But yeah, I have trouble with the friction part, which is like I say, with no third hand or safety or whatever else. Sometimes I've come close to, especially on the big drops.
It's a very real risk, and it's great that we're talking about this for the recording, because I'm sure other people might not have experienced this. So making sure that you have enough friction before you start, and all of these practical tools we'll be talking about way more on the Canyon Skills Day. But you want to have a descender that you can add more friction on mid-flight and that you can block off really easily. So for that reason, this is superior to the version that Jason had, just because it has these additional blocks at the base. And so it's got extra loops, and the top ones are very secure. So you can add in heaps of extra friction. You can completely block yourself off. You can do that with an 8 as well, but it requires more specialist knowledge, which it's going to be way too hard to remember right now. So I got this from CEY4, and it's the best one that I've come across. I've seen other people with different models, but they've got the additional loops at the bottom as well. So this is going to be your easiest and safest to start off with. Don't get the Hydrobot. The Hydrobot is not safe for canyoning from what I've been trained, for several reasons. It doesn't have, it relies on this magnetic thing to be on the right orientation. And if you're rubbing against a rock or something like that, things can flick up. So you want it to be locked in with a carabiner level, kind of secure, which is why from my training we've been told to never have anything like that. We lost Jason, hopefully he comes back in. And yeah, Hydrobot also twists the rope, it coils the rope. So if you've got a multi-pitch drop and different parts of the rope are twisted, I'll just let Jason back in.
I have the opposite friction issues, I feel. I've used figure of 8 canyoning, but being only 60 kilos and the rope's heavy and wet, it's really a drag to get it through.
So I'm sure, Danielle, if we show you the setup on the Canyon Skills Day, that even being light, you'll be able to, it might just be that it's set up in a way which isn't the proper canyoning way. There's so many different ways you can set up a figure 8, but I really want to teach you the way to set up a figure 8. It's a very fast setup, but it's the safest setup because, like I say, if you're holding the descender as you're going and there's rocks rubbing the rope underneath it, the traditional setup of the figure 8 can actually pull the rope over the top and make a knot, and you'll be stuck, like the climbing setup, which is why you never want to use that in a canyon environment. But yeah, it's really hard to simulate here in the office. But the canyon setup is fast, and you definitely, no matter how light you are, won't have an issue. Yeah, Jason, we just went through Hydrobot and how it coils the rope and stuff like that, and how it's not ideal for, say, canyoning.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Okay, another thing with the harness, which is really important, and don't go canyoning without this. It's your safety lines. So you want to have 2 safety lines. So I've got, a rope. You can have other stuff as well, like cowtails and other things to make it a bit shorter and easier and not knocking into your knees. But you want to have something which is attached securely to your harness, where you can secure yourself onto a rope, onto an anchor, so that you're able to get yourself to the place where you can attach onto the canyoning rope to descend. And so you probably want to have it like at least arm length distance away from the body, maybe even a little bit longer, as long as you can shorten it. And you want to have two of them because you want to attach on, attach off, attach onto a different anchor point, and always be connected and secured. So this is for dangerous situations like when you're close to the edge or when you're navigating through high flow. There's a lot of different places that you'll need it. But the general rule of thumb is if you're in a situation where if you slip, you could die, always be attached. Don't rely on just like your footing or whatever.
So Adele, do you use that instead of a daisy chain?
I use like a rope instead of a daisy chain.
Yeah. Is that what you're using?
There's many different ways to attach that carabiner to your harness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can use like a daisy chain as long as like whatever's attaching this to your harness.
Yeah.
Even if it comes undone, like it undoes the daisy chain stuff. Like it's secure. Like you can only fall a certain distance.
I tried to buy a daisy chain on the weekend and I was guided away from it for the reason that he said it's not really ideal to be unhooking and hooking yourself back up if you need to shorten it when you're descending. I can't remember the name of the one that I ended up buying, but I'm probably going to need to run through with that when I'm in person next. But it's easier to adjust while you're mid-descent instead of having to unhook and rehook.
Yeah. That's a really good reason for not having a daisy chain. There's actually a canyoning specific one that CE4Y, which means canyoning equipment for you, makes, which can extend and reduce while you're using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's way better than mine. It's just a rope. But
I've got two. So I've got the same one. I've got an adjustable one like you've got.
Yeah.
And I've got daisy chains too. And I wasn't in the canyon, but last weekend I was doing an abseil. It was like a 70-meter drop, I think. And I hooked up with my adjustable, and it started slipping. So,
what do you mean it started slipping?
Well, do you know how?
Yeah, that's awesome, Danielle. You've got a really good one there. That's ideal. Yeah, amazing.
Very good.
So, hold on. Yeah, so your adjustable one. I've got CT. I've got a CT.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, that's awesome as well, Jason.
They're good, but the configure when I hooked on, and I took up the slack. Okay, it started slipping.
Yeah, so right. Okay.
So I've got a daisy chain as well, which I do prefer because it can't slip. I do use the two, and it all depends. I found it all depends on basically when you hook on. If that's touching the rock, or like if it's actually touching the rock rather than being mid-air, it can have the potential to actually slip out. I mean, it can't go nowhere because of the stopper.
You've got the stopper, but you don't have the controlled length anymore.
Yeah, so I've started carrying one of them and a daisy chain. With the daisy chain, okay, it's not quite as user friendly where all you got to do is pull a cord and pull yourself in. You've got to manually go radio and adjust it with your carabiner to whichever link suits.
Yeah.
But I use it. Yeah, I've just started using the two now.
Yeah.
I actually do prefer the daisy chain to the pull one. It does have its advantages. But
it might be because of your size, Jason. Like it might not be designed for like the average 70-kilo male or whatever.
Get off those beers, mate.
but they should be designed for everyone, but some of them aren't. But maybe Danielle's, like, it'd be fun for you on the day, Jason, to try Danielle's one and see if the friction on that is better for your weight.
I know, it's got good friction. I've used it in other circumstances and it hasn't slipped. I'm just saying, like, yeah, I think you've got to be careful when you actually lock on the configuration of the actual locking device. If it's twisted, if it's hitting the rock, and as you put your weight on it, it's twisting or whatever else. Because sometimes it doesn't do it. Sometimes it does. It all depends on.
Yeah.
Mainly if the device is actually on the rock, not kind of like in mid-air kind of thing. That's what I found.
You want to have something that's consistent. The best kind of attachment that you can use for your slings to attach yourself is something that's consistent all the time, Jason.
Yeah.
And yeah. So if it's sometimes inconsistent and you can't figure out exactly what's doing it, I'd steer away from it because you can't trust it.
That's why.
But you are using contingency, so that's good.
Why I take two. So.
Yeah. Well, you always need two anyway.
Yeah, I didn't realise you needed two in the yeah.
Yeah.
When you do normal, because when I do normal abseiling, I only ever take one normally, but I've just started taking a second one.
Yeah. Having one will get you through, most situations you encounter, but there are a lot of situations in canyoning where you really want to be attached all the time, and if you want to attach from that one, you want to attach to that one. There's that moment in between as you're moving it across where you're not attached.
Yeah.
So different types, or like a daisy chain end like the one I have, or
I would definitely do one as just a rope.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, I'd do an adjustable one, like what you have, Danielle's perfect. Or if Jason has, another version of what Jason has, I've seen them work really, they're amazing. They're so easy to use. But it needs to be consistent.
They are easy to use,
yeah. Yeah. Check out CE4Y. I love their stuff. They're in the Netherlands. But if we do a group order from Australia, he'll probably, because I know the owner, he'll probably be able to, give us a discount and put it in so we don't have to pay duty and stuff like that. So it should, and it's way cheaper. Although the Australian dollars drops, I don't know anymore. We're going to have to see.
What's that called?
CE4Y? That's the harness. CE4Y, yeah. It's called Canyoning Equipment for You, or CE4Y.
CE4.
Never go canyoning without a helmet. You want to have a helmet that protects you from rockfall from above. And if you're going to be doing aquatic canyons, I think this is a climbing helmet. It's Black Diamond. Is it? Vapor. Is it? Black Diamond Vapor is what I have. So it's also got at the back as well. So if I slip down on the rocks, the back of my head's protected. I've got a little bit of side protection, probably a little bit more than what I have. Got some air vents as well. You want to have vents in aquatic canyons so that if you get caught in the water, imagine a lot of current flowing through this. You don't want it to capture a thick helmet and have it dragging you back, choking you or something. If you're underneath a waterfall and you fall upside down, you don't want that pressure of the water dragging your helmet and choking you. So have some vents in your helmet. It's, a very rare situation, but, protect yourself. Any questions on helmets? Or, nope. Waterproof bag so that you can bring a mobile phone, map, navigation, satellite phone, communication, whatever you want to bring with you to keep yourself safe, an EPIRB, something like that, or food. Even better than a waterproof bag are these canyoning tubes. So we basically weren't allowed to go through our training unless we had one of these. And the reason for this is flotation in the backpack as well. So when you chuck your backpack into the pool before you go down or after you're going down, sometimes you have it attached to you, you want the bag to be floating. These are really handy, and you can put your first aid kit in here as well. More relevant for like if you're leading trips, but you want to make sure that someone in your group has a first aid kit and some like idea around emergency response. We can go through that a little bit more on the skills day as well. So that's it for first aid kit as well, just to make sure, you know, getting first aid kit. That's it for general canyoning equipment. Oh, sorry. Gloves are probably really important in Australia, given that people sometimes have very thin ropes, and sometimes rope sheaths are made out of very quite abrasive materials. Your like professional canyoning rope, you wouldn't need gloves for. Like, we weren't allowed to use gloves in Switzerland because we had really safe, thick ropes that went slow and we had the right friction and all of that kind of thing. But having gloves in Australia is very common, and you just want to make sure with your gloves that they're not going to like stick the rope and you're not going to get stuck. Like, you want to have gloves that are thick enough and abrasion resistant, but also they're not like so sticky that they're going to like stick the rope and then you can't really use them properly. So that's it for like personal equipment type thing.
It's always good to have an actual canyon backpack, so it allows the water to actually drain out.
Yeah, so now I'm going to go through that stuff. Jason, you're a step ahead of me. So if you don't want to rely on other people to carry your shit, like your water and your first aid kit and whatever else, have a canyoning backpack. And so what kind of backpack do you have, Jason? Do you have
I've got that one.
You got this one? Yeah.
That's Petzl, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah, I've got the same one.
Okay, so Helen, I'm just looking at your backpack. That's a waterproof bag, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a borrowed one for now. Until I get mine.
Yep. And the waterproof bags, like, that's pretty much filling the purpose of, you know, you've got the air bubble inside your waterproof bag so it floats.
Yeah.
The waterproof bag is fine for like a personal bag, but if you're going to be leading a trip and carrying rope, I definitely recommend a canyoning bag. The reason for that is because these bags are, and I can kind of show you better on the day, like the proper use of bags, how it makes it quite helpful. But you've got like a place to attach the bottom of the rope. There's a way that you stuff the rope in the bag so that it's very efficient as you're using it. The top of the rope, like what's the bottom, what's the top of the rope. You've got a space down the bottom to put your flotation stuff. And then you've got this big clear space in the middle, which is just for the rope. Nothing else goes in there, because when you're packing rope, kind of like feeding it into the bag, it'll make more sense when we're there in person. You want to coil it in a way, not really coil it, but like put it in a way so that stuff that goes down first comes out last. And what that means is you save a lot of time with like rope management. Mm-hmm. Is that how you use your bag, Jason?
Not quite, no.
Everyone has their own way, and the tricks of the trade I'd love to share with you guys. It'll just save you a little bit of time. It'll minimize like the risk of rope getting stuck, because you really don't want your rope to get stuck when you're feeding it through. Like, I use single line technique. And so the other half of my rope, like obviously like half the rope is down, you're abseiling down on that half that's secured. The other half of my rope's in my bag. And then I'm abseiling last with my bag. And so I want that rope, as I'm abseiling, to come really nice and smoothly out of my bag. If it gets stuck while I'm halfway down an abseil, that's not a good situation. But I do have a good thing I can block off and then I can sort out the situation. But if you're a beginner, new to canyoning, new to abseiling, you really don't want to have that situation. So packing your canyoning bag is probably one of the most important things people new to canyoning don't really get. So I'm hoping we can go through that together on the day. What other stuff? Having a place where you can get your rope sorted, which isn't going to get dirt in it, because you don't really want to have dirt in it. That's always handy. And a place where you can take off your wetsuit. I just have like this Petzl ground cloth. It's not really necessary. It's just a nice to have. Then if you're going to be carrying rope, I'd recommend a rope protector. So this can just go onto a sling at the appropriate place. Then you can wrap this around the rope so that as you're going down over any abrasive rock, your rope isn't getting kind of like cut through. You can just make the ropes last longer. Might not be feasible to bring this in a canyon. I don't always bring it, but if I'm going into like a sharp rock canyon, I like to bring it. Or if I'm doing dry abseiling, I find that it helps my ropes last a bit longer. Prusik as a backup, not to be used on everything, but a prusik if you're in a situation where you need to ascend or something else happens. So that's like a thinner diameter rope that's been tied together and you can adjust. This is a super long one. And the rest of the equipment is more like specialist equipment, but since we have time, I'll just go through it quickly. Ascenders for use in emergency situations. I always like to carry them if it's a canyon that I'm not super familiar with, and if I don't know if there's like exits after every drop, I'll bring my ascenders. Like if you can't just climb out and you might be stuck somewhere, have an ascender and know how to use it. And if you're going to have ascenders, having a foot loop is really handy to already have something tied. So this side will attach to one of the ascenders. It needs to be at the right length, and this side your foot goes in. You can make one if you need to though, or you can just use a sling. Having spare slings, just in case you need to make an anchor, if there's no bolts on the place where you want to go down. Using these in canyons, I know these are called quick draws in climbing. These are not like we were told in our training, they're not great to use. The reason being that these could so easily be opened by something. So I know these are really common in climbing, but in canyoning, only use screw lock carabiners. And this is more like level 3 stuff, but if you had a hydraulic in a pool and you wanted to set up like a guided rappel so that you go over the hydraulic in the pool, this is also from CE4Y. You can rig this up. It's quite a complicated rigging, and it would probably take like a decent amount of experience to figure it out, and a lot of practice. But basically, you get this down into the flow of the water, and it gets captured by the water, and it drags it over the edge. And then the first person that goes down would abseil down on a different line, but that would kind of be like a guideline. So one of their slings would be attached to that line, which is attached to this bag, which is being held with the force of the water because of the way the bag's designed. And they're kind of like doing they're still attached on the main line with their
Yeah, you have two lines, one top, one bottom, and you anchor yourself to the top one, and as you actually rappel down, you slide down the top.
That's right.
That's
and
what
it
we
takes
tried.
you across.
That's what we tried having with
Bill, yeah, with
with
the
Bill,
old anchor.
didn't quite work. We have tried it, but yeah,
Didn't work great, but
unsuccessfully. But I get the concept.
After the first person who goes down, you replace the bag, which is obviously not secure. It's only going to take you a little bit over the hazard, if at all. Like, you always send down the best swimmer first, because they're going to have to like get over the hydraulic. And then they would replace the bag. They would secure the top line to their own, to their harness, or to even better, like to a natural anchor. And then that provides an even better like zip line. It's not that you're only attached to that zip line. The attachment to the zip lines is secondary. The main attachment, the one that's keeping you safe and alive, is still through the normal process, like through your descender. Yeah.
It's basically it's like you say, it's like a zip line. It's basically to get you from one point to another point over whatever danger is below.
Yeah.
So rather than go straight down and swim across, you're going down on an angle.
Yeah.
Across. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Thanks, Jason. I kind of lost my words. That was really helpful. I'm glad.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, like trees and stuff. If there's a tree right where you're landing, which happens a lot in our canyon.
That's why we did it. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But, it's quite complicated. You need to reset it multiple times to do it the way I've been taught anyway. So good on you for trying.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the two girls went down first, and like it sort of like worked, but yeah, they chose to not let me go on it because they said yeah, because I'm a big fella. I didn't think they could hold me.
Wait for the tributes. Jason pushed us first.
Anyway, but yeah, I get the concept.
Well, awesome, guys. Is there anything you want to discuss on gear or just in general, or we've got our last 10 minutes?
Not on the basic level. I mean, the same thing that you were on about, that bag where it takes the flow and goes over the edge. Same thing with so it's if you've got nothing to actually anchor to at the top, you can use like water buckets, like a water bag over a ledge and actually abseil down that. And once you get down to the bottom, pull cord, the water's released and your rope comes back down again. That kind of thing, if you know what I mean.
Are you talking about the guided line instead of having a water bucket instead of this?
It's at the top. It's at the top, not the bottom. So if you don't actually have anything to actually make an anchor, you can get like I don't know the correct name for it, but you can get it's like a water bag that you fill with water and you wedge it in over a small ledge, and you only need about 30 or 40 kilo
to hold your weight as you abseil down.
As you abseil down, yeah.
How would a 30, 40 kilo water bag hold your weight as you abseil down? Because of the pressure of the water.
I don't know the physics of it, but I've watched many people have told me, and I've watched it many a time on YouTube and this and that, and same with sandbags as well. You can actually fill bags with sand with a pull cord and actually go over the top, abseil down, and then same principle as a fiddle stick. You pull whatever's holding the bag at the top, be it water, sand, or whatever, and then as you drag it down, the water's released, the sand's released, and then your rope comes tumbling down.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, fiddle sticks and that kind of stuff, like from my background with like safety as your first priority and not risking your life with like, things that have a higher risk of going wrong, I would never, ever, ever do that.
What, fiddle stick?
No, I wouldn't do fiddle sticks. I wouldn't do that sandbag trick, even if it can hold your weight, because like, just because you don't, there's a lot more uncontrolled factors what about if something came down over the waterfall and knocked that sandbag and the sand fell out and you're suspended halfway through? Like, there's just things that you can't control. I'm not saying it's high risk. I'm just saying, like, from my perspective, and I've been trained to be ultimately safe. So, you know, everyone's going to do what they want to do and they're going to take the risk that they want to take. But I wouldn't put my life on the line with that.
Yeah.
Well, but people do.
Like I say, we've been with a few people doing local canyons and that, you know, like the ones I mentioned before, and we have used a fiddle stick, purely for the fact that if you've got a 70-meter drop, you only need 1 70-meter rope with a fiddle stick and a pull cord, rather than take either 2 ropes and tie them together.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're screwed. Like, so we've actually used a fiddle stick on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
And with the fiddle stick, it's only actually the last person that has any risk, because the people going down prior, the one that I've got,
they're secured because you can just change the rope after.
Yeah, well, because you have a small, you have basically a quick draw that connects from end to end of your fiddle stick, so it can't actually come out the knot. So it's only the last person that has to undo that. Obviously, go down on the rope that's on the stick that's not secured. But we've done that many a time.
I know people do it, Jason. Yeah, I know people do it, and especially in Australia, like, we have such big drops and there's such big days, and carrying all that weight, like, we've got a lot of incentive. But I'd rather get like one of those ultra light weight ropes from CE4Y, which has other issues with it because it's much higher abrasion. So you want gloves, and you want much more, like, you need gloves for it. And you need a little bit more friction.
You need a lot more friction too. I mean, what kind of thickness?
I'd rather do that though than use a fiddle stick, like, you know, for that one drop. Or just take 2 ropes and, like, distribute the weight across multiple people.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
There's ways, but, like, especially recreationally, I know people will do things for convenience and ease. But, like, you're quite experienced, Jason, in your own way, like, with climbing and stuff like that. But I also just want to make sure that if people are quite new to canyoning, I'll do a good job by, like, putting in, like, the safest thing. But
I'm not super experienced. I do a lot of abseiling. I do a lot of abseiling, and I'll go down by myself and do multi pitches and whatever else. That doesn't bother me. I'm only just getting into the canyons now.
Yeah.
And I'm not super experienced by telling those by any means. But
it's more experienced than me.
But yeah, no, like I say, I have used it. I prefer the thicker rope.
Yeah.
I prefer the bigger ropes, which is why I don't mind using the fiddle stick, because you only need 1 rope and the pull cord. But I always take 2 anyway, just in case, because you never know what's going to happen. You get 1 rope snagged and you're on a multi-pitch. Well, you're screwed, aren't you? Because if you ain't got a backup rope and it's snagged and whatever, you got no idea. You can't start climbing a rope that you've got no idea what it's snagged around, because if it gives way, well, then you're dead.
So for like level, this is more relevant for level 3 stuff, like trip leading and wanting to be prepared for all situations. You would always go with a rope that's double the length of the highest drop, plus a rescue rope, which is the same length as the highest drop. So if your highest drop is 40 meters, you would go inside your group with a 80-meter rope and a 40-meter rope. Yeah. And that second rope you set up as a rescue line if you need to. That person can go down the line, you can cut away the line if someone's stuck. Like, there's other things you can do. Is that what you're familiar with, Jason?
I do take 2 ropes for the rescue. Yeah. So if you have to, you can drop another line down.
Yeah.
Or sometimes like I say, if you do Watson's or Burnett or whatever, you're talking 50 to 70 meter drop.
Yeah.
Which means you've got to take 2 70 or 80 meter ropes.
Yeah.
And if you want to do it so you can actually retrieve your rope by pulling it down.
Yeah.
Well, then I tie 2 ropes together all the time with a normally I use a double overhand, but
using a threaded figure 8 to tie ropes together or a double fisherman's is
I
just
use a double overhand.
It can work, but like, do you ever find that sometimes the double overhand like gets too hard to untie?
No.
Okay.
I've never
sometimes when it's loaded, it can be a little difficult to untie.
Yeah, I get that, and if like I say, I've never really had a drama untying a tied knot, and that's with 100 kilo going down on the bloody thing, you know. But,
the reason why we suggest like a threaded 8 or a double fisherman's is just because the knot itself is actually much smaller. So then as you're pulling, it has less chance to get stuck on things as well.
Yeah, with the overhand, the actual knot's above the rope, so the actual rope carries on going straight, and the knot's above it. That's why I use that. So when you actually pull it down, the knot's actually not actually a double fisherman's. The knot's there with the 2 strands coming out.
I'm not saying the double fisherman's is what you hold it up with, though. It's just how you secure the 2 ropes together. You'd use a different system to pull it down, like to secure it to the top, which is still on top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
but the like thing itself is like a lot smaller that you need to pull down, so there's less stuff that it can get stuck on.
Yeah.
But if it's safe and it works for you and you can deal with it,
I don't know yeah, that's why I'm here, because I only know my way, so I want to learn different ways. But yeah.
There's no one right way, right? Like you can get down a canyon so many different ways.
Oh yeah.
Where I remember from my training, and I do have all my course notes here, like I'll definitely brush up before I see you guys, and I'll hopefully be able to give you like good reasons why, so that you can like put it in your head and go, okay, I'm taking this choice now, but I know what the risks are.
So a lot of your when you set up your rope and that, wherever you go,
yeah,
is it basically through the rings and that doubled up so you can actually pull the rope down when you hit the bottom, yeah? Or do you have a pull cord to release it, or what's
like the rope, and there's systems as well, even for the last person, but basically the rope, the halfway point is at the top, going through the anchors, as all of the anchors that are there, so you have contingency. And then there's also a system as well. You obviously have to have a system, otherwise you can't go down on the single strand. Single line technique.
Yeah, okay. Because most of the time we go down, I'll put down a double line so I can pull it through. And if they want to go down on a single line,
you don't put down, like with the single line technique, you don't put down the other half of the line. The other half of the line stays in your backpack. And the last person goes down with the backpack and unspools from the bag as you go. That's like the single line technique. I know a lot of people in Australia just go down with the double line, but the risks of that are that someone could abseil on the wrong end. The risks of it are that they could get tangled up as you're going down. People have probably seen that happen before. The other side might not make it all the way down, and so the person who's going down needs to find it. So the single line technique's much safer for those reasons. Like, we'll go through a lot of common problems. I actually have another meeting now, so I need to jump. But if you guys have any questions, like, just send it through on the group chat. And thank you, Jason, for like all of the great questions and conversation. I really appreciated like the challenge. I think this is the right conversation to have, because then people are thinking like, I've got this thought, I want them to really be able to test it out. So good on you, mate.
Well, I just find that normally someone shows a person their way, so that person thinks, oh well, this is the way, because they've been shown. And like I say, I've been taught by like I haven't done no courses. I've picked it up myself and through other people, but I only know their way. So that's why, you know, I'm not being argumentative. I'm just going, well, this is what I've been shown, what I do, and it works for me. I'm not saying it's perfect or the safest way, but I'm here to learn new ways and make what I do safer and better. So I don't come because I have a few close misses.
And can you share in the group what those, like, afterwards, because I need to go now, can you share in the group what those close misses were? Because I want to go through, like, you know, stuff.
What you said with your middle, you know, because I go down a double strand.
Not now, Jason. Share them after.
Middle.
Everyone grab a small line of rope like this that you can practice tying knots on. Practice tying all the knots before the day, because you want to be like really second nature to that. Thank you so much for coming. You guys made it so much better for being here, and we'll chat soon. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Adele.
See you later. Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Thanks.